At my 18th birthday party held right here in the cabin my grandparents left me, I quietly finalized the transfer of their entire multi-million-dollar estate into an irrevocable trust just to be safe. The party was in full swing, everyone raising glasses and laughing like everything was perfect. While they toasted to my future, I slipped away for a moment, pulled out my phone, and hit confirm on the digital signature that locked everything down: the cabin, the land, the accounts. My name is Autumn Henderson, and that one click made me the sole trustee. No turning back. I'd been preparing this for weeks, with the lawyer my grandparents trusted waiting only for the day I turned 18 to make it official. The doubts had been building for months, but I never said a word. The very next morning, as the mountain fog still hung thick in the valleys, I heard tires crunching gravel outside. A moving truck pulled up, followed by my parents and younger brother, all stepping out with big smiles and a thick stack of papers in hand. "We've got it all sorted," my dad announced confidently. "The house belongs to us now." They started directing the movers like they already owned the place, telling me to pack my things by the end of the day. That's when they looked up at the wide porch and saw the man in the suit standing next to a sheriff's deputy holding an official folder and waiting calmly. If you've ever dealt with family trying to claim what's yours or had to protect something important from the people closest to you, drop your story in the comments below. I read them all. And if this kind of boundary setting and toxic dynamics hits home, subscribe for more stories like this. You won't want to miss what happens next. When I was 14, everything changed with one letter that arrived in the mail. It was from a prestigious high school in Knoxville, offering me a full scholarship based on my grades and test scores, one of those merit-based programs that cover tuition completely for top students from across Tennessee. I remember rushing home from school that day, clutching the envelope, my heart pounding with excitement. This was my ticket out, proof that hard work paid off despite everything. I burst through the door and showed it to my parents right away. My mother glanced at it briefly, offered a quick, "That's nice, honey," and then turned back to the phone call she was on. My father nodded, said something like, "Good job," but his eyes were already on the TV where highlights from Sawyer's latest football game were playing. Within minutes, the conversation shifted entirely. Sawyer had gotten into a fight at school that week. Nothing major, just a scuffle with another kid during recess that escalated into punches. He ended up suspended for a few days. Instead of punishment, the house revolved around him. My parents spent the entire week meeting with the principal, arguing that it was self-defense, hiring a private tutor to catch him up on missed work, and even throwing a small gathering with his teammates to cheer him up. They talked about how unfair the suspension was, how the other kid provoked it, and how Sawyer needed support to get through this tough time. I sat there during dinner listening to it all, my scholarship letter forgotten on the counter. No one organized anything for me, no family dinner to celebrate. I ended up framing the acceptance letter myself and hanging it in my room, where it stayed as a quiet reminder that achievements like mine were expected, not celebrated. That moment hit hard. I realized my successes were just background noise, while Sawyer's mistakes became the main event demanding everyone's attention. The second blow came the following year when Sawyer was 15. He was out riding his bike around the neighborhood, one of those expensive models my parents had bought him after a good season, and he clipped a neighbor's parked car while showing off to friends. The damage wasn't huge, a scratched fender and dented door, but it could have cost a few thousand to fix properly. I expected consequences. After all, when I was younger and accidentally knocked over an old family vase while cleaning one my mother cherished from her own childhood, I got grounded for weeks and a long lecture about responsibility. But with Sawyer, it was different. My parents immediately drove over to the neighbor's house, apologized profusely, and wrote a check on the spot to cover repairs. Then, without hesitation, they took him to the bike shop and upgraded him to an even better model, saying he deserved something reliable after the scare. They framed it as teaching him a lesson in making things right, but to me it felt like rewarding recklessness. Sawyer came home grinning, showing off the new bike, while my father clapped him on the back and said, Boys would be boys. No grounding, no loss of privileges, just more support. That incident crystallized everything. I wasn't just overlooked. I was held to a higher standard, expected to be perfect and independent, while Sawyer's flaws were excused, cushioned, and even turned into opportunities for more. It forced me into a role I never asked for, the responsible one who handled her own disappointments, who didn't cause waves, who fixed things quietly because asking for help or fairness never led anywhere. These weren't isolated moments. They shaped how I moved through the world from then on. I stopped sharing my wins, buried the hurt deeper, and started relying only on myself. The unfairness didn't make me bitter toward Sawyer exactly. He was just a kid benefiting from the system our parents built, but it did make me question what family really meant when support flowed only one way. Looking back, those two events were the turning point. They taught me early that expecting equity at home was futile, and that if I wanted security or recognition, I'd have to create it outside those walls. The cabin in the Smoky Mountains became my true refuge growing up. Those weekend trips from Knoxville, about 90 minutes on curving highways through the foothills, always felt like crossing into another life. The city noise faded, replaced by wind in the pines and the crunch of gravel under tires as we pulled up the long drive. Many afternoons revolved around projects with my grandfather, Lloyd Henderson. He'd spot issues around the property that needed attention, like sections of the wide porch roof sagging from years of snow load and rain. We'd gather tools from his well-organized shed, climb the extension ladder together, and replace rotten boards or patch shingles. He moved slower as time passed, but never lost his precision, showing me how to cut angles clean and seal seams properly against the mountain weather. Working side by side, sweat mixing with sawdust, he'd share practical wisdom. Not lectures, just observations about doing things right the first time to avoid bigger problems later. His steady nod when a repair held firm gave me a sense of accomplishment deeper than any report card ever could. Firewood preparation filled other days. Grandfather ran the chainsaw to buck fallen trees into rounds, then we'd set up the splitting block in the clearing behind the cabin. He'd demonstrate the swing weight, shifting forward maul head, meeting the grain at just the right spot for a clean break. I'd take turns, muscles burning after a few hours, stacking the split pieces neatly under the overhang to season. Breaks meant cold water from the hand pump and quiet talk about the forest, how certain trees grew stronger in poor soil, or memories of storms that downed whole ridges. Those sessions built strength in me beyond the physical, teaching resilience through repetition and care. Evenings brought a shift indoors with my grandmother, Ruby Henderson. Her kitchen was the heart of the place, filled with the aroma of simmering pots on the wood stove. She'd pull out ingredients for her signature venison stew meat from hunts. Grandfather still managed, when health allowed, root vegetables from the garden plot she'd tended for decades. I'd chop onions while she seared chunks in lard, tears streaming from the fumes as we laughed about it. Then came the layering: carrots, potatoes, herbs tied in cheesecloth for easy removal. The pot bubbled slowly, flavors deepening over hours, filling the cabin with warmth that chased away any chill. We'd eat at the scarred oak table bowls, steaming bread baked fresh that morning, sopping up the rich broth. Grandmother's stories flowed then about meeting grandfather during wartime, building this home board by board on weekends away from factory jobs. Her gentle questions about my life drew out things I held back at home, making me feel truly heard. As their health declined, my role grew. Doctor visits in nearby towns meant longer stays, helping with daily tasks that became harder, carrying groceries up the steep path. Reading mail aloud when eyesight failed, sitting vigil during hospital stays. They expressed gratitude in small ways: a hand squeeze, an extra slice of pie, never demanding, but clearly appreciating the presence. One conversation altered everything. Grandfather sat in his worn armchair beside the stone fireplace one fall night, the flames low and steady. Grandmother had retired early, leaving us in comfortable silence until he spoke up. "I've seen how Gary manages finances. He said plainly, eyes on the fire. And Victor, too, chasing schemes that don't pan out, overextending on credit for things that depreciate fast. He paused, letting the crackle fill the gap. Your grandmother and I talked it through many times. That's why the cabin, the land here, everything we've saved, it's yours. We know you'll steward it responsibly, preserve what matters instead of squandering. Then came the line that echoed long after. Family isn't always about who deserves what they're given. Some aren't meant to hold on to certain things. It wasn't accusatory, just honest assessment from a man who'd lived frugally and wisely. Those words lodged in me, sparking questions about comments I'd overheard from my father regarding property values or potential sales. Doubt took root quietly that night, reshaping how I viewed casual family mentions of the place. Their declines accelerated afterward. Grandmother slipped on ice, one winter, complication setting in quickly despite treatment. Grandfather followed, soon, heart giving out as if unwilling to continue alone. The service was intimate, held at a small church overlooking the ridges they cherished, attendees mostly old neighbors and distant relatives sharing memories of shared meals or help during floods. When the attorney read the will formally in a quiet office afterward, confirming the full transfer to me, the cabin structure forested acres, modest but secure investments accumulated over lifetimes, the reality sank in. This wasn't mere inheritance. It represented deliberate choices, trust placed in my hands alone. Standing outside later mountains shrouded in mist, the burden felt immense, honoring their faith by protecting what they'd built against any threats known or unforeseen. Word spread quickly through local news and online forums about potential new tourism developments in the Smoky Mountains area. Talk of expanded lodging, better access roads, and more attractions to handle the millions pouring into Sevier County each year. Property values in nearby spots like Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge had been climbing steadily, with reports of land selling faster and at higher prices than before. The buzz reached our family too, shifting how they talked about the cabin. Visits from Knoxville, roughly an hour's drive on those winding routes, became more frequent. My parents started showing up unannounced on weekends, claiming they wanted to check on things or clear out leftover items from the grandparents' storage. Victor arrived most often. He'd been struggling since his small construction business folded a couple of years back, leaving him with unpaid loans and credit card debt that kept piling up. He'd park his truck in the clearing, walk the property lines with a measuring tape, muttering about acreage and views. One afternoon, he sat on the porch steps with a notebook, sketching rough ideas. "This spot has serious potential," he said, gesturing toward the forested slope. "With all the new projects they're planning nearby, land like this could fetch a fortune if sold at the right time." He suggested listing it soon, arguing the market wouldn't stay hot forever. "Think about the family," he added. "Splitting proceeds would give everyone a boost, cover debt, set up savings, maybe help Sawyer with college down the line." My father agreed during his next drop by, pointing out maintenance costs, adding up roof repairs, property taxes on the expanded acres. "It's a big responsibility for one person," he noted, echoing Victor's line about sharing the burden financially. Mother chimed in over coffee in the kitchen, mentioning how nice it would be to have funds for home updates in Knoxville or a family vacation they'd postponed. She framed it as practical, not greedy, but the focus stayed on money flowing out if kept versus coming in if liquidated. Sawyer got excited, imagining a new truck or gear for his football team, asking directly if selling meant he could upgrade his ride sooner. Their comments layered on visit after visit, always circling back to timing the sale perfectly amid rising demand from tourists and developers. I listened without pushing back, noticing how conversations avoided memories of the place and jumped straight to appraisals or realtor contacts Victor claimed to know. Care morphed into calculation, concern into convenience. Victor's pressure intensified. He'd text midweek about opportunities slipping away or forward articles on regional growth. Once he brought printouts of comparable sales, highlighting numbers far above what the land had been worth when my grandparents bought it decades ago. My parents backed him fully by then, discussing division of proceeds openly in front of me, assuming agreement. Sawyer joined in, dreaming aloud about using his share for custom wheels or a down payment on something flashy once he turned driving age. The shift crystallized during one group outing to walk the boundary markers. Victor paced off sections, estimating values per acre based on recent comps he'd researched. Father nodded along, calculating totals in his head, while Mother worried aloud about holding too long and missing peak prices. Sawyer trailed behind, kicking rocks, already spending hypothetical cash on upgrades. No one asked how I felt about parting with the only spot that ever felt truly mine. That day removed any lingering doubt. Their interest wasn't in preserving legacy or honoring wishes. It centered purely on profit, on turning sentiment into statements. Suspicion hardened into certainty. They viewed the inheritance as communal resource, not individual gift. The change marked a clear break in my thinking, from wary observation to firm recognition of calculated intent. Driving down from the cabin to Knoxville felt longer than the usual hour, every curve in the highway giving me more time to second-guess everything. I'd booked the appointment with Jonathan Rice weeks earlier, right after my birthday, but now that the day arrived, my stomach twisted with nerves. His office sat in a quiet downtown building, away from the bustle grandfather had recommended him years ago for handling their affairs, praising his straightforward approach to estate matters. Jonathan greeted me calmly, gesturing to a chair across from his desk stacked with neat folders. We reviewed the documents he'd prepared in advance, the irrevocable trust structure, funding schedules for the bank accounts, and deed transfers for the cabin and surrounding acres. Everything waited only for my final signature, now that I had turned 18. He explained the protections again, how placing assets in this type of trust removed them from my personal estate, shielding against future claims while honoring my grandparents' intent. Tennessee law allowed it fully at my age, no guardianship needed. Then he leaned forward, voice steady but direct. Are you prepared for the fallout? This could mean confrontation, even losing ties with your family if they push back. The question hung heavy. Memories flooded in despite my efforts to stay focused. I thought about rare good times, like the Christmas when Sawyer was little and we all decorated the tree in Knoxville together, my parents laughing as he hung ornaments too high. Or the road trip to the beach one summer, stopping for ice cream, feeling almost normal as a unit. Even smaller moments surfaced: Mother helping with a school project late one night, Father cheering at a recital I'd almost forgotten, Sawyer sharing headphones on a long drive, both of us singing off-key to old songs. Those flashes made the choice ache. Protecting the inheritance meant drawing a line they might never forgive crossing. Isolation loomed if they reacted badly. Holidays could turn empty. Phone calls cease, the already thin connection snap entirely. Jonathan waited patiently while I stared at the papers. It's not impulsive, he added gently. You've thought this through, but it is permanent. I asked for details again: how distributions would work if I needed funds for maintenance, tax implications, shifted immediately, options if circumstances changed dramatically. He answered each clearly, no pressure either way. Doubt crested that afternoon. Driving back up the mountain, fog rolling in early, I pulled over at an overlook and sat with the engine off. The quiet pressed in, mirroring the fear of silence from home if I followed through. What if they surprised me? What if the pressure was just worry, not greed? Losing whatever remained of family felt like grieving them prematurely. Sleep evaded me that night in the cabin. Fire low in the hearth. I paced rooms my grandparents filled with life, touching familiar objects. A carved walking stick grandfather made grandmother's quilt on the sofa. Their trust in me weighed against the pull of blood ties. By dawn, clarity emerged, not as thunder, but quiet resolve. The recent visits, calculations disguised as care. Victor's urgency all pointed one direction: Waiting risked everything they'd built slipping away through manipulation or forged claims. The decision crystallized safeguard their legacy, accept the pain of potential estrangement. Growth demanded it, even if lonely. Back in Jonathan's office the next morning, hand steadier than expected, I signed the final pages. Relief washed over immediately. Security locked in mingled with sharp sorrow for bridges possibly burned. He shook my hand firmly. This took courage. Many hesitate forever. Leaving downtown Knoxville City giving way to foothills, the mix settled empowerment from action grief over fractured bonds ahead. Maturity arrived not gently but necessarily forged in that irreversible choice. The family dinner invitation came as no surprise. They suggested gathering at the cabin itself easier for everyone they claimed since I was already there most weekends. I agreed without hesitation, curious to see how far the assumptions had gone. Preparations kept me busy that day, stocking the pantry with steaks and fresh produce from the nearby market in Townsend, setting the long oak table my grandparents had built decades ago. The stone fireplace crackled early, chasing away the evening chill as vehicles pulled up the gravel drive. Father arrived first, with Mother carrying a bottle of wine and a store-bought pie. Sawyer followed, earbuds and duffel slung over his shoulder like he planned to stay. Victor showed up, last toolbox in hand, saying he wanted to look at a few things while here. Conversation started light over appetizers, whether Sawyer's upcoming football playoffs, neighborhood updates from Knoxville. Laughter flowed easily, enough plates passed around the table laden with grilled meat, roasted vegetables, cornbread warm from the oven. I waited until dessert coffee steaming in mugs before steering it deliberately. Hypothetically, I said casually, fork pausing over pie, if this cabin suddenly didn't belong to any of us, if it went to charity or something, what would everyone think? Silence dropped instantly. Sawyer shifted in his chair, brow furrowing. Don't joke like that, he muttered, tone sharp. It's not funny. Victor recovered quickest, leaning forward with that practiced smile. Well, if we're talking hypotheticals, best move would be selling quick, lock in current values before any market dip. Split clean, no hard feelings. Father cleared his throat, glancing at Mother. It's not likely, but yeah, practical to liquidate, invest proceeds smarter. His words came measured, avoiding my eyes. Mother busied herself refilling cups. We'd figure something fair, she added vaguely, discomfort evident in her tight smile. The deflection fueled the shift. Talk turned swiftly to improvements, needed Victor sketching on a napkin. How to expand the loft into extra bedrooms, add a hot tub on the deck for rental appeal. Sawyer jumped in excitedly. Could turn it into an Airbnb setup, weekend getaways for tourists hitting the national park. I'd handle bookings, make bank during peak seasons. Father nodded approval. Smart use of space. Modern kitchen upgrade, better Wi-Fi returns would justify costs fast. Mother suggested decor changes, brighter colors, open layout, as if decisions were collective already. No one paused to ask my input. Plans built on each other, voices overlapping with specifics, estimated nightly rates. Contractor contacts, Victor knew tax advantages of short-term rentals. I sat back, observing the ease with which they claimed ownership in conversation. Assumptions filled the air, thicker than wood smoke proceeds, divided equally, schedules coordinated around family use. Victor's enthusiasm peaked, describing profit projections based on similar listings nearby. Sawyer scrolled comparable properties on his phone, showing photos of renovated cabins fetching premium prices. Father calculated aloud potential annual income after expenses, Mother agreeing it could fund college fully for Sawyer or retirement supplements. The evening revealed everything without confrontation. Their vision excluded my role beyond passive agreement, treating the place as shared asset ripe for transformation. Tension coiled inside me, but outwardly I nodded along, refilling drinks, clearing plates. Inside, confirmation settled. Entitlement ran deep, plans advanced far beyond casual suggestion. As dishes stacked in the sink later, Victor clapped my shoulder. Good thinking ahead on this will make it work for everybody. The words landed hollow, underscoring how thoroughly they'd rewritten reality in their minds. That night confirmed the trust's necessity more than any argument could. Boundaries weren't just legal, now they felt essential for survival. Dawn light filtered through the pines when the rumble started. A large moving truck lumbered up the dirt road, followed by two familiar vehicles kicking dust behind them. My parents, Sawyer and Victor, emerged almost in unison, faces bright with anticipation, as hired crew hopped down from the cab. Sawyer waved a thick envelope triumphantly, striding ahead like he led the charge. "We got it done," he announced, voice carrying across the clearing. "Signed and filed, everything's official now." Father directed the workers, immediately pointing toward the furniture visible through windows. "Start with the heavier pieces, the couch, dining table, careful on the porch steps." Mother organized boxes she'd brought, labeling them for different rooms as if reallocating space already. Victor supervised the truck ramp, joking with the crew about tight turns on mountain drives. Confidence radiated from them all, casual instructions, easy laughter, plans discussed openly for loading order and storage units back in town. Sawyer handed the documents around, proudly explaining how he'd handled the notary part himself since turning 16, made certain things simpler in his mind, guided by online forms and parental advice. They moved efficiently, wrapping grandfather's old rocker, stacking grandmother's quilts into containers. Chatter filled the air, where to store seasonal decor, potential garage sales for unwanted items, quick timeline to clear the place. I stood near the door, watching the scene unfold without interference. The crew hauled out a bookshelf, Sawyer directing traffic with newfound authority. Then the group paused, mid-motion, gazes lifting toward the wide porch overhead. Jonathan Rice stood there, composed in his suit, beside a uniformed sheriff's deputy from Sevier County. Both held official folders, expressions neutral but unmistakable in purpose. Jonathan descended the steps slowly. "I need to speak with everyone present regarding this property." Father straightened, smile fading. "Who are you?" "Jonathan Rice, attorney handling the estate trust for Autumn Henderson. This is Deputy Harlan responding to a reported attempted unlawful transfer." Sawyer clutched the envelope tighter. "We have paperwork, it's all legal." Jonathan accepted the documents, calmly flipping pages with practiced efficiency. "These filings are invalid on multiple grounds. The primary issue: forged signatures and unauthorized notary stamps. Records show no matching certification for the service used." Victor's face paled. "There must be a mix-up. We followed instructions carefully." Deputy Harlan spoke evenly. "Attempting to transfer title without owner consent, especially with fraudulent instruments, constitutes title fraud under Tennessee Code. This serves as formal notice to cease immediately." Mother's hand flew to her mouth. "We thought we were just correcting things for the family." Father's posture, deflated, voice losing edge. "Let's discuss this reasonably, no need for officials." Jonathan continued, unflinching. "The property, cabin, acreage, associated accounts, resides in an irrevocable trust executed legally weeks ago. Autumn is sole trustee. Any further action risks criminal charges." Attention turned to Sawyer, envelope now trembling in his grip. He'd signed prominently as co-owner transferee, believing guidance from parents made it binding. His bravado cracked, first eyes widening, color draining as realization hit. "I only did what they told me. Thought it was fine." Victor averted gaze, muttering about misunderstandings. Mother reached for Sawyer instinctively, but shock froze her. Father rubbed his temple, words failing. The crew shifted awkwardly, one murmuring about pausing work. Deputy Harlan addressed them directly. "No loading today. This stops now." Silence blanketed the clearing, broken only by wind through trees. Sawyer sank onto a box, head in hands, youth exposed in the collapse. Victor paced short steps, calculations unraveling visibly. Parents exchanged defeated looks earlier, certainty evaporated. Jonathan handed copies of trust summaries and cease notices. "Further attempts will escalate. Recommend consulting independent counsel. Deputy added weight. Will document this incident. Repeat visits of this nature could lead to trespass charges. They retreated without protest crew, climbing back into the truck family vehicles reversing down the drive. Dust settled slowly, leaving the porch empty except for Jonathan and the deputy confirming details. The reversal struck deepest through Sawyer. His role in signing exposed him most directly, turning teenage confidence into raw vulnerability. The others carried quieter defeats. Victor's schemes dashed parents' justifications hollowed. That morning stripped away pretense, revealing consequences in real-time legal walls holding firm against overreach. Jonathan filed the countersuit shortly after the incident, alleging attempted title fraud and intentional interference with inheritance rights under Tennessee statutes. The case moved steadily through Sevier County Court discovery requests, uncovering the forged notary emails coordinating the plan, even Sawyer's online searches for quick property transfer forms. Evidence mounted clearly, leaving little room for defense. My family hired separate counsel, costs adding up quickly with depositions and filings. Victor's situation worsened. Fastest existing creditors circled when news of the suit spread, pushing him toward bankruptcy protection that still left judgments hanging. Trial lasted only days. The judge ruled decisively in my favor, awarding compensatory damages for legal fees and punitive amounts to deter similar conduct. Total burden on them exceeded 6 figures when all expenses settled, straining finances already stretched thin. No appeals followed. Resources ran dry. Payments arrived through garnishment and liens drawn out over months, but inevitable. Contact ceased entirely afterward. Phone numbers blocked, mine, first social media accounts privatized or unfollowed. Holiday cards stopped, group chats dissolved without explanation. Not one message arrived, no regret expressed, no accountability offered. Silence replaced tension, absolute and final. Life at the cabin shifted into rhythm I controlled fully. Mornings often meant tending the garden plot grandmother cherished, turning soil rich from years of compost, planting heirloom seeds she'd saved in labeled jars. Rows of tomatoes, beans, herbs emerged under my care, harvested fresh for simple meals. Afternoons brought maintenance projects. I tackled the porch roof section grandfather once patched, temporarily sourcing matching shingles from a supplier in Gatlinburg. Ladder steady against beams, I removed weathered pieces, felt the sun on my back, while nailing new ones secure. Each strike echoed satisfaction, preserving structure with my own hands, extending legacy practically. Evenings settled beside the fireplace alone. Flames danced over logs. I'd split myself warmth, spreading through rooms filled with familiar creaks and quiet. Books from their shelves became companions, tea steaming on the side table nights, stretching peaceful without interruption. Solitude revealed depth. I hadn't known space to process years of imbalance, grieve lost connections while embracing chosen independence. Freedom tasted real, decisions, mine pace, unhurried surroundings reflecting care invested willingly. Victor relocated eventually, rumors placing him farther south, chasing construction work. Parents scaled back spending noticeably, Sawyer finishing high school quieter than before. Distance grew literal and emotional, paths diverging without overlap. Standing on the wide porch one crisp morning, coffee in hand, I watched mist lift from the valley below. Pines swayed gently, birds calling across ridges, light breaking golden over land secured. The view held everything earned through hard choice, peace, rooted firmly, belonging unquestioned. What I've learned runs deeper than any courtroom win. Protecting what matters sometimes means releasing who doesn't value it the same way. True family shows in actions over time, not blood alone. Setting boundaries isn't rejection, it's self-respect that opens room for authentic connections elsewhere. If you're facing similar pressures, inheritance disputes, unbalanced dynamics, the weight of expectations, no, standing firm can lead here too to quiet strength. genuine autonomy, life aligned with your own terms.